The circus dazzles with excitement and wonder, but hidden beneath the spectacle are dark and tragic stories. In this video, we'll explore 5 of the most disturbing circus deaths, real accounts of performers who met untimely and shocking ends under the big top. These are the stories you won't forget. It was February 2017 in Sarasota, Florida, when the Wallenda family, famous for their daring high-wire acts, rehearsed a risky 8-person pyramid without a safety net. Nick Wallenda, a 7th-generation member of the Wallenda family, was leading the rehearsal with his sister Lijana and other family members. Performing without a safety net was a long-standing family tradition, symbolizing their courage and skill. However, this day would soon turn into a disaster. At the time, Nick, 38 years old, had grown up in a family where walking on wires was second nature. At just 2 years old, he impressed his mother by walking on a wire in their living room. The Wallenda's family legacy dates back to the late 1700s in Austria-Hungary, where their daring stunts gained them fame. Over the years, they became known for their fearless, high-wire performances, which earned them a reputation for being willing to take extreme risks. The pyramid was positioned 35 feet above the ground during the Sarasota rehearsal, with Lijana at the top. Suddenly, one of the performers lost balance, causing the entire formation to collapse. 5 performers fell to the ground while Nick and his cousin, Blake, managed to hold on to the wire. The scene quickly turned chaotic, with 4 performers suffering severe injuries. Lijana sustained the worst injuries, breaking every bone in her face, which required immediate surgery.
I broke every bone in my face, and so they had to put it all back together with, I have 3 plates and 72 screws in my face.
She was placed in a medically induced coma, and surgeons worked to repair her face with plates and screws. Despite the severity of her injuries, Lijana remained determined to recover and return to the high wire. This tragic accident was not the first for the Wallenda family. In 1962, a 7-person pyramid collapsed during a performance in Detroit, killing 2 of Nick and Lijana's uncles, Dieter Shep and Richard Faunen. Their patriarch, Carl Wallenda, sustained injuries to his pelvis while another family member was left paralyzed. Just a year later, Carl's sister-in-law, Rieta, died after falling 45 feet during a performance in Omaha, Nebraska. Despite these accidents, the Wallendas continued to perform without a safety net. In 1978, Carl Wallenda, at 73 years old, attempted a high-wire walk between 2 hotel towers in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Facing high winds and poorly secured cables, Carl fell to his death, an event that was broadcast live on television. This incident added to the family's legacy of resilience, but it is also a reminder of the risks they faced. Lijana grew up hearing stories of her family's tragedies, but these didn't deter her. To her, they felt like legends. She resumed rehearsals just a few weeks after her accident in Sarasota, stating that it felt like home to her. "Just because you get into a car accident doesn't mean you stop driving," she said, explaining her willingness to return to the wire. Nick Wallenda, who has broken 10 world records, shares his sister's resolve. In 2011, he recreated the same high-wire walk in Puerto Rico that claimed his great-grandfather Carl's life. "My great-grandfather lost his life, and I recreated that walk," he said. "Tragedies happen, but life is about how you respond. We continue performing to inspire others." The Wallendas' decision to perform without a safety net started in 1928 during their U.S. debut at Madison Square Garden. When their net was lost in transit, Carl and his team decided to perform without it. The audience was amazed, and from that point on, the Wallendas never used a net, a choice that added to their daring image but came at great risk. In 1942, the Wallendas experienced a fall during a performance in Akron, Ohio, but no one was injured. This accident led a reporter to coin the term the Flying Wallendas. They also survived the Hartford Circus fire in 1944, a tragedy that killed 167 people. For 44 years after these incidents, the Wallendas performed without any major accidents until the devastating collapse of the 7-person pyramid in 1962. Despite the challenges, the Walendas remained committed to their craft, driven by tradition and resilience. In June 2017, Nick's wife, Arundira, made history by dangling her teeth from a helicopter 300 feet above Niagara Falls, breaking her husband's previous record by 50 feet. The Walenda family continues to inspire with their daring acts and unbreakable spirit. Motivating and inspiring others is what people need today, Nick Walenda said. Our performances aim to show the world that no matter what happens, you keep going. As Luciana recovers, the family's legacy of pushing past fear and adversity remains a powerful example of human resilience. It was September 13, 1916, in Erwin, Tennessee, when a horrific event took place, one that remains one of the darkest moments in American circus history. A 5-ton Asian elephant named Mary was publicly hanged from a railway derrick after she killed her handler. This brutal act exposed the cruelty and exploitation present in the circus industry at the time. During the early 20th century, the circus was hugely popular in America. Traveling shows entertained millions nationwide, featuring performances from clowns, acrobats, and exotic animals. However, behind the scenes, these circuses often mistreated both their human and animal performers, leading to dangerous working conditions and frequent abuse. Mary, one of the main attractions of the Sparks world-famous shows, a traveling circus owned by Charlie Sparks, was a victim of such cruelty. Known as Big Mary, she was advertised as the largest living land animal on Earth, even bigger than the famous Jumbo from Barnum and Bailey. She was highly trained and could perform remarkable tricks, including playing musical instruments and catching baseballs. Things took a tragic turn when the circus hired a new handler named Walter "Red" Eldridge. Eldridge, who had no prior experience with elephants, was hired to feed and care for them. On the day in Kingsport, Tennessee, Eldridge struck Mary with a bull hook, a sharp tool used to control elephants. Angered, Mary reacted violently, resulting in Eldridge's death. Some say she threw him to the ground and crushed his head, while others claim she attacked him with her tusks or trunk. The town was in shock after Eldridge's death, and people demanded that Mary be punished. A crowd gathered, and several people even shot at Mary, though the bullets did not harm her. The crowd became more hostile, chanting for her death. Mary was chained outside the jail, and by the time the circus arrived for its next performance in Erwin, the town refused to let the circus perform unless Mary was executed. Charlie Sparks, who had a strong attachment to Mary, faced a difficult decision. In the end, he chose to have her killed publicly to save his circus. The execution of such a large animal proved challenging. After attempts with bullets and suggestions of dismembering her, they decided to hang Mary using a crane from a nearby railroad yard. A large crowd gathered to witness the execution. Mary was led to the railway crane, and a chain was placed around her neck. When the crane lifted her, the first attempt failed, causing her to fall and break her hip. On the second try, she was hoisted again. She struggled for a short time before going limp, and after 30 minutes, a veterinarian declared her dead. This public execution sparked widespread outrage. People across the country were horrified, and the story made headlines, causing many to question the treatment of animals in circuses. While Mary's tragic death drew attention, she wasn't the only elephant to suffer such a fate. Similar incidents followed, like the electrocution of an elephant named Topsy in 1903 and the shooting of another elephant, Tyke, in 1994. Mary's death eventually became a symbol of the cruelty faced by animals in the circus industry. It helped spark a movement toward better treatment of animals and contributed to the call for animal welfare laws. Over time, pressure from the public and animal rights activists led to significant changes, including the retirement of circus elephants. Today, Mary's story is a powerful example of the exploitation many animals endured in circuses. It also shows the importance of treating animals with respect and dignity, leading to reforms reshaping how animals are treated in entertainment. Mary's legacy and other elephants like her have paved the way for lasting change in the industry. It was May 22nd, 2004, in St. Paul, Minnesota. Desi Espana, a 32-year-old aerial acrobat with the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus, was performing her signature aerial ballet. She captivated audiences with her graceful routines, performing high above them without a safety net suspended by long chiffon scarves. But on that day, tragedy struck. Desi, originally from Bulgaria, came from a family of circus performers. Her parents were also in the business and she had been performing for years. In 1992, she married Ivan Espana, a Mexican trapeze artist, during a circus show. Together they had 2 children, Zor and Sion, who were also trained in the circus arts. The family's life revolved around traveling, performing, and perfecting their circus skills. That afternoon, Desi performed without a harness as part of her act. At around 3:15 p.m., one loosened while hanging upside down from the scarves. In seconds, she fell 30 feet to the hard concrete floor below. The audience, which included many children, was horrified by the sight. Eyewitnesses had different accounts of how she landed. Some said she fell headfirst, while others reported she landed on her back or stomach. Regardless of the specifics, the impact was devastating. Clowns quickly entered the ring to distract the audience, particularly the children. But the atmosphere had already shifted to one of shock. One girl in the crowd asked, "Is she still alive?" Medical personnel rushed to Desi and got her to Regions Hospital within minutes. Unfortunately, despite their efforts, she passed away later that evening at 10:20 p.m., leaving the circus community and audience in disbelief. Both the police and circus officials immediately launched investigations. Paul Schnell, a spokesperson for the St. Paul Police, confirmed no suspicion of foul play. However, the city's licensing department began investigating whether safety regulations had been violated, as city statutes required a safety net for such acts. Schnell commented, "Just because there is a law does not mean there will be a criminal case. It seems like a tragedy." The Ringling Brothers Circus also started their investigation. A circus spokesman, Mark Riddell, explained that this was the first fatal accident in their shows in over a decade. He emphasized that aerial performances always involve calculated risks, but noted the circus's strong safety record over its 134-year history. He further explained that a safety harness couldn't be used for Desi's particular act, and chiffon performances traditionally do not use nets. The Minnesota office of the U.S. Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, chose not to investigate. James Honerman, a spokesperson for the office, stated, "This type of risk is part of their routine. It doesn't fit the typical OSHA fatality." The show continued after the incident, but many spectators were too shaken to stay. One audience member, Lori Burnham, left the arena with her daughters, who were deeply disturbed by the ringmaster's decision to continue as if nothing had happened. Despite the tragic event, the circus continued its remaining performances that weekend. Alexis Copeland, a spokeswoman for the circus, remarked, "The show must go on." This long-standing circus mantra felt especially harsh to those who had witnessed the accident firsthand. Desi's death was a grim example of the risks that circus performers face. The thrill and excitement of the acts often come with inherent danger. Circus performers frequently see these risks as part of their commitment to excellence. Circus performers are always striving to be the best in the world, Riddell said. Desi was no exception. She set records at a young age, swirling 97 hoops around her body simultaneously. Her sudden fall raised many questions. Was the scarf properly secured? Could a safety net have prevented her death? While the answers remain unclear, these questions lingered with both the audience and her fellow performers. For Desi's family, the loss was immeasurable. Yvonne and their children were left to carry on the circus tradition while mourning the death of a wife and mother whose love for the circus never wavered. It was June 29, 2013, at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. Sarah Gouillard-Guillot, a 31-year-old acrobat, performed in Cirque du Soleil's Ka show. Sarah had been part of the original cast since 2006 and was well known for her aerial skills. With over 20 years of experience, she was a beloved performer and mother of 2. That night, the audience filled the theater. unaware of the tragedy about to unfold. During the show's final scene, Sarah was involved in a mock battle where performers were suspended in the air by lines controlled remotely. As she was being lifted, something went wrong. Witnesses said many people initially thought what happened was part of the show. Dan Mosqueda, a visitor, mentioned, "A lot of people thought it was part of the show, but then we heard her scream." Sarah fell from a height of nearly 100 feet into a pit below the stage. The audience, at first confused, quickly realized the severity of the situation. The show briefly continued before being stopped. A recorded announcement informed the audience that the performance was canceled and they were offered refunds or vouchers for future shows. The audience exited the theater in shock and silence. Sarah was pronounced dead at the hospital shortly after, with the cause being multiple blunt force trauma, as confirmed by the Clark County Coroner's Office. This incident marked the first fatal accident in Cirque du Soleil's 30-year history during a performance. The Nevada Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, launched an investigation. It was found that the wire rope supporting Sarah's ascent had slipped from the pulley, causing it to scrape against a sharp edge and break. OSHA determined that Cirque du Soleil had not provided Sarah proper training or safety measures. As a result, the company was issued 6 citations and fined over $25,000. The MGM Grand was also fined $7,000 for exposing employees to hazards. In the wake of this tragedy, Cirque du Soleil's founder, Guy Laliberté, released a statement expressing his deep sorrow. "I am heartbroken. My sincerest condolences go to the family. We are devastated. We are reminded of the extraordinary work our artists do every night." The MGM Grand also said, "We are deeply saddened by losing one of our talented performers. Our thoughts are with the performer's family, the CA cast, and the Cirque du Soleil family." Sarah's death left a deep impact on her colleagues and students. She had worked as a coach at Cirque Fit, a fitness and circus program for children in Las Vegas. Parents of her students left heartfelt messages on social media. One parent shared, "She was an amazing teacher. We will miss her terribly." Another wrote, "My boys loved every moment in Miss Sarah's class. Deepest sympathies to her loved ones." Cirque du Soleil suspended all CA performances for over 2 weeks in response to the accident. During this time, the company reviewed its safety procedures and made necessary adjustments. Spokesperson René-Claude Menard said, "We have redoubled our efforts to ensure the safety of our performers and crew." The incident occurred while Cirque's top executives were in Las Vegas for the premiere of their new show, Michael Jackson 1. The tragic timing emphasized the importance of safety in live performances, especially given the complexity of Cirque du Soleil productions. Born in Paris, Sarah, nicknamed Sassoon, had a long career in aerial performances. She was highly regarded for her dedication and passion, leaving a lasting mark on the Cirque du Soleil family and the wider performance community. The OSHA investigation highlighted several safety failures that contributed to the accident. These included inadequate training for Sarah on the equipment and insufficient safety precautions for the performers. Cirque du Soleil and the MGM Grand faced criticism for their lack of safety measures. Both companies committed to improving their safety standards despite the fines and citations. Cirque du Soleil thoroughly reviewed its safety policies following Sarah's accident. The company said, "We have intensified our efforts to ensure the safety of our performers and crew." MGM also emphasized that safety remained a top priority for the company. This tragic accident showed the dangers of live performances and underscored the need for strict safety measures and training. Sarah's death tells us about the risks performers face and brings attention to the importance of safeguarding their well-being. Sarah Gaillard-Guillot's memory lives on through the people she touched. Her students remember her as an inspiring teacher, while her colleagues at Cirque du Soleil honor her as a talented and passionate artist. It was January 3rd, 1872, in Bolton, Lancashire. Thomas Masardi the Lion Tamer was preparing for his final night performance at Manders's Menagerie. He was famous for his daring acts with lions, and about 500 people had packed the marquee, eager to see the show. This night would be unforgettable, but not in the way anyone expected. Thomas McCarthy, born around 1839 in Cork, Ireland, had spent most of his life working in menageries. He was known for his boldness, even though he had lost his left arm to a lioness during a performance in Liverpool in 1862. He continued this risky practice despite warnings about the dangers of turning his back on the lions. Earlier that day, McCart left home sober but seemed uneasy. His wife testified that he mentioned being afraid of one of the lions that had bitten him earlier that week. It's believed he went for a few drinks before the performance to calm his nerves. By the time he arrived, dressed in his Roman gladiator costume, he was reportedly under the influence of alcohol. Due to popular demand, the performance was scheduled for 10:30 p.m. McCarthy entered the cage with 5 male lions, starting his act known as lion hunting. He drove the lions from one end of the cage to another, running and stamping his feet to make them move. Suddenly, one of the lions ran against his legs, causing him to fall. He quickly got up and continued, but the African lion, known for its black mane, struck him again. McCarthy struggled to regain his footing, but the lions saw an opportunity. The black-maned lion pinned him down, tearing at his costume and flesh. The other lions joined in, mauling him. McCarthy tried to defend himself with his sword and revolver loaded with blanks, but it was useless. The crowd, initially thinking it was part of the act, soon realized the horror unfolding before them. Panic spread as the audience screamed. The handlers rushed to heat the irons, the usual method to control the lions, but it took precious time. In the meantime, the lions continued their attack, tearing flesh from McCarthy's body. When the hot irons were finally ready, the handlers drove 4 of the lions back. The 5th lion, the first attacked, was still on McCarthy. Only after burning its nose with the hot iron did it relent. As they tried to pull McCarthy out, one of the lions grabbed him by the foot, dragging him back. The scene was chaotic and gruesome. Eventually, McCarthy was rescued and taken to the infirmary, but he was already beyond saving. He suffered severe injuries. His scalp was torn, his thighs were bitten, and his right arm was fractured. He briefly spoke, acknowledging his fate, and then died. Thomas McCart was buried in the Roman Catholic section of Bolton Cemetery. Mrs. Manders, the owner of the menagerie, later erected a monument over his grave. It was a white marble cross, a reminder of the dangerous life he led. McCarthy's death was a tragic end to a daring career. His story remains one of the most infamous in the history of lion tamers. The details of his demise, witnessed by a horrified crowd, have been documented and remembered as a fearful tragedy. His burial record, now part of the Bolton database, is a historical record of the risks those who worked in such dangerous professions face.